Hello and welcome back to the channel. This is SuperCoach Challenges, and today we're going to be doing a video on a few pods, but they are some risky as pods. But you know what? At this time of year, we're all looking for something to make our team a little bit different and get some different scores on the board. And I think that also with the way that money's going, we're also in a kind of hard spot regarding what money we have to spend, and we're all trying to look for ways to get plays that are going to score decently without having to spend too much cash on them. So I've gone through, had a quick look at the guys. So what I've done is kind of set it up, except for maybe one. I've set it up as anyone kind of under 500k, maybe 450ish is probably where most of these guys are going to land and lower. Because there's some guys that may not be highly owned, but they have been showing a little bit of something different with their scoring lately, and it could be interesting to see where they go. There's been a few reasons why they've been held down, and we can put behind the average that we've seen for the start of this year and look forward to the average at the end of the year. And I think there's going to be some interesting ones. So I'm going to start with the more popular ones that a lot of people are talking about, and then go through to maybe some of the ones that are a little less popular and a little less talked about. Because there are some interesting names here. And I know that, yes, you're going to probably look at a lot of these and go, no, never in my world would I ever pick those players. But guess what? Some of these players are going to be going up against guys like Will Day. Some teams will be finishing with like Keys, etc. Himmelberg, and you know, Cheezel even could be those D6s. And if you're all right for the rest of it, but you just need a player to finish off your team a little bit different, and also to get you some points over the rest of these buys, then this could be these could be players that could finish that team off and give you that edge. And a lot of them have historically been able to score really well, especially with a slight role change. And that could mean that you start with a player who goes maybe 80 to 90 each week, who could then go to 90 to 100 to 110. There's maybe one that's more of a breakout, but the rest of them are probably been able to score before and a little bit more bona fide. So first off, and you want to, and I'm telling you, you'll want to stay, because the last one is a pretty nice one that I think's flying under a lot of radars. But anyway, the first one is Nathan Fyfe. So we all know Nat Fyfe. He was a Brownlow medalist. He was an absolute star for years of this. And he's only found in 10% of teams at the moment, but this is rising. It's going to be 15%. So this is probably the least potty out of these picks. Probably, I would say. But as you can see, at the start of the year, he was playing that half-forward flank role. Now, this is risky pods because they are risky. There's a lot of risk with these picks, but if you need to finish your team, they could really, really work out. Because if we look at this scoring, we can see that, yeah, it was pretty bad, but since he's come back, it's gone from 49 to 67 to 96. Now, he isn't even at the price he started at this year. He's 37k below. He's got a -3 break even. Now, there's a few reasons why I think that Fyfe has every reason for you to pick. One, his time on ground was up to 83% last week. Now, that was some of the highest time on ground. Well, it was the highest time on ground he had this year. Two, break even -3. Now, there are players coming back in, and there's one specific player that's coming back in that this player could, that Fyfe could definitely tie you over through a few weeks until you upgrade if you have the trades. Now, I think that this year trade's going to be important. And if you do have the trades, this is one you could work up to. Callum Mills, who'll be coming in, has a huge break even. It's probably going to get down to 400k. Now, if Fyfe continues to score at a decent rate, he's probably going to go up what? This is at 46.50. He's going to go up, what, another 30k. So that would take him to 300. But realistically, if he can go 70, 80, he's probably going to get to 400k pretty easily, which is just about where Mills will be in 2 to 3 rounds. So this could be a nice tie over. He's got GWS Essendon, who are pretty easy, and then the Bulldogs. Now, the other reason, and this is probably one that's being overlooked by a lot of people, there's the argument of keeping injury trades or having backup on the bench. And I'm really liking the idea of having the backup on the bench rather than the injury trades. And the reason being is if you can have say, and this could work for a lot of teams, is having like a Nat Fife and a Ben Keys in your forward line. You could just loot them most weeks. I think I was looking at like these next 2 weeks, which don't really matter because it's buys anyway, and you're only getting best 18. But after that, like they're pretty loopable the whole rest of the season. So that means you could emergency Fife. If he scores, Bell, take the score. If he doesn't, then put Keys on. Obviously, there is risk. They both could score badly, but this could help you to actually get a nice 80 to 90 more regularly in that last spot. The other thing is if you do get an injury somewhere, I mean, Fife's going to be able to cover. And the way the injuries and suspensions have happened, it's probably going to work out better to have a player that can cover both, midfield and forward, defense, ruck, forward, stuff like that, rather than having those extra trades. Because you use a trade on a player who gets injured, then you're probably going to be stuck as well. So at least this has that added benefit. Now, the risk with this is O'Meara's back now, who's going to need midfield time. That's going to take it away probably from Fife. There's another. He's very injury prone. He's shown that in the previous years. And also his scoring really hasn't been up to it. And the role change is probably the big one because he could go back to a forward flank, and then you're stuck. But for me, I think that it's a worthwhile risk. We know what he can score. He showed last week he can score a 90. And if he can get back to that fitness, he's slowly building up to it. Fremantle have built him up this year to that. He could be a really, really nice player for a lot of people who are looking for that cheap player. Next is one that people who've watched the channel will know very well. So it is Nasiah Wanganeen Malira. So he's actually a bit expensive now, 461k. But man, has he been on a heater the past few weeks. And if this is a breakout coming after this buy, then you'd be very happy with it. I mean, look, he's got Richmond next week, 16th and 10th versus defenders and midfielders. His 3-round average is 110 and a 5-round 97. That is beating Will Day. I would suggest it's beating Will Day. Let's have a look. So 3-round of 88, 85, and that is what a lot of teams are going to be stuck with as their D6 is Will Day. And if you have Wanganeen Miller, the past few rounds he's been shown that he's a lot better. He's getting kickouts, which Day doesn't get. And also, I'd suggest he's probably nearly got an easier run. Like, look at this after Richmond, they have Brisbane, which is hard, but at least it's at Marvel. And then they have West Coast, who are obviously, as we know, very easy. Melbourne, who probably keep the ball down their end a lot. And then Gold Coast, North, Hawthorn, Carlton, Richmond again. And then Geelong and Brisbane are that hard end. But at least Geelong's at Marvel. So the ball will be down his end and he'd be able to get a lot of it. And I think that, as we said, this is risk it midfielders, and he's already had his bye. He's got a good run of games coming up. He's seemingly starting to break out, and they're putting a lot more trust in him. So, that's another one that you can put on the list of players that could make a big splash for your team. And he's a pod, 2%. 2% of teams have Wanganeen Malira. But as I said, you need to be wary. If you go these guys, they score badly, you are in that 2%. And the thing with Wanganeen Miller is that role ain't changing. He ain't being pushed to the midfield. He's playing full-on back flank, which is one of the best scoring positions in Supercoach. Next is Elliot Yeo. We know what this guy can do over a full year, and the only problem has been he's injury prone. He's in 4% of teams, so he's actually in more than Wanganeen Malira. A cheaper price. I think a lot of people were thinking choosing between him and Keys. It looks like either way you didn't really choose badly. I'd say Yo, if he's not injured, he's a better scoring option than Keys. But the problem is there's all the injuries, whereas Keys has that history with injuries where it's a bit safer. As I said, he's on the bye this week, so you can wait a week, but 3-round average of 103. His last two are 125, 113, and he's getting more mid-time, and he's really getting a lot more run through that midfield now. West Coast direly need a guy like him to stand up. You got guys like Gaff and stuff who are just falling off a cliff. Sure, you can't get on the field, and I think Yo is going to be the guy who's going to be taking the lion's share of that and getting a lot of disposals. And he could get that defender midfielder status as well, which could be really helpful. So that's another nice thing about Elliot Yo. Obviously, the big con being that injury proneness, but as we said, the 103 at 3-round average, if he keeps that, a lot of people are playing Will Day there. Let's actually look at the Will Day ownership. So this is probably what you like if you're thinking about this. So he's in 20% of teams, but I'd say a lot of the top teams have him, and that's what you're probably playing against a little bit. So when you're thinking about these players, that's what you want to think about it. And moving on to the next play, it is Christian Salem. So Salem has always been one that we've, like a lot of super coaches have kept on their list as a player who could really break out and score well. The problem is he's never been able to get on the field, and when he has, he's been in horrible roles, or he's got injured and just become irrelevant. Now, he's come back and he hasn't, scored amazingly well, but 78, 88, 85 up to 99 against Collingwood. Now, Collingwood's a good team and he scored that against them, and it's just slowly been rising, He's kept the 90.3 round average, which is like better than Will Day. He's a 1% pod. And if he continues to stay fit and just continues to, what we've got to think about with Salem is he hasn't played a lot of footy over the past few years. And if once he gets more used to it, and back in Melbourne are going to want to be winning, he's a big part of that. And I think as part of them winning, he's going to be getting a lot of kicks into the forward line for them. Just having a look at his team. So if we go to, this is preseason, sorry. But if we go to SuperCoach Points and we go to Melbourne, you'll find Salem he's all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So he's sixth here with 78, 88, 85, 89. So an adjusted average is the same, because he hasn't missed any games there. But if we have a look at what it's kind of looking like from a heat map perspective with Salem. So I was kind of having a look at this to see how it was moving, and it's all been half back flank. So there's nothing changing in the role, and I suggest that doesn't change unless he's injured. Now, we look at these heat maps. So this is the first one is here. So we got the first one here, and you can see that he was really, a lot of the ball was in this back flank on the left-hand side. Really, a lot of his disposal was coming out the bat. But as you can see, he's kind of got, we move to the next round, he's moving up the field a bit more. He's getting a bit more into play. And then round 13, he's moved up even more in round 12. And then round 13, he's just everywhere through the middle, really starting to move the ball. And I think, you can see how it seemed to be like, I'm just going to slowly, get back into it, get comfortable, and then it slowly moved through and started attacking more and getting up the field more. And you can see how this heat map has slowly moved from here in this corner to slowly outward further and further. And I think the more it gets out to the middle, the more ball he's going to get, and he's going to get a lot of more intercepts and a lot more delivery into the forward line, and even chances at shot on goals. So I think that is a worthy risk it pod. Next on the list is his teammate, and it is Angus Brayshaw. So Angus is one that is 448k, so relatively cheap, not as cheap as Salem, so I'd probably prefer him if you're going to take a risk. But at the same time, we've seen what Brayshaw can score, and he's actually 100k down on his price that he started at. And the thing is if Brayshaw gets a significant role change, we could see his scores start to really rise. A 3-round average of 90 is still acceptable, especially at that position of this. We're talking about D6, M8, F6 type positions, even loops through there. And if you can somehow get a Brayshaw and loop him with like a Himmelberg, I think you'd be quite happy. He can every now and then spike these 120s. Otherwise, he's been around that 90 mark, which isn't too bad. But as I said, if he gets a legitimate role change, if maybe him and Salem start to work a little bit better together, and he doesn't feel like he has to sit behind the ball as much, he might be able to move up and be more attacking. And it'll be interesting to see coming off the bye against Geelong how they go. And I think a lot of it's to do with Angus's the fact that he's done it so many times before. If we look at last year, he was able to average 100, and I think you'll find that in his back end, he went from the bye probably 100. Well, looks like 105 at least, maybe 110. Without this 77, it's definitely 105 ish. And just scored really well with that little bit of a role change. So this could be a guy that is significant pod for you. We only have to go back to, where was his huge year? I'd say it was like 2018. Must have been 2020. He had a massive year. Oh, okay. So there was a year where he just went absolutely massive in Dream Team. It must have been, it must have been only in Dream Team then. I thought he had like a massive year. Wait a minute. 2017. Here it is, 2017. He 5 rounds played. That's not right, is it? Oh no, it is. 2018. Yeah, 2018 where he went huge. It must be in fantasy that he went absolutely massive. I swear there was a year he went. Wait a minute. (2016). There was definitely a year where he went massive, but it is not able to be seen now. Anyway, I think that Brayshaw is still an interesting risk at pod, and he's shown with a role change that he could continue to score well. Next on the list is Jarman Impey. So Impey was previously a guy we picked up as a defender forward when he first moved to Hawthorn. 1% in teams. Hasn't been great this year, but we have seen the last three, 112, 105, 106. And he seems to be getting quite a bit of ball as Hawthorn have kind of moved from this team that was losing quite a bit to a team that's attacking a lot more. And it seems to be really good for his role. From what you can see, a lot of it is to do with his role. When he's playing out of a back pocket, he's scoring a lot better. Whereas when he was playing off a back flank, he was being reduced to these lower scores. Now, I guess you can make the argument that this West Coast scores a bit more because of like the way the game was played, but there's probably no excuse for the Fremantle and Melbourne one. Now, this is a really risky one, but he has a 3-round average of 107. Does that suggest more of a role change where they've kind of said you can attack more, you can go chase the ball a little bit more? Not sure, but Sicily's out for 3 weeks at this point in time, unless the appeal goes through, which could mean that he has more chances for kickouts over that period as well. And this could be a nice pod for you. Probably I'd say the riskiest one, to be honest, is Impey. Hasn't really ever had a really good historical scoring year, except I think obviously 2021 was the year we all brought him in and he averaged 90, which was great, but he got injured and then was kind of irrelevant in that. And he has shown, and it is the same team, and he has shown that he can do these big, like this average run of 90. He could do it. It's just it hasn't really been relevant this year. But it will be interesting to see if now with Sicily out, if his role changes at all. Hopefully not. And it could be one that you decide to risk it on. And now the last player. And I think this was a player that some people may have looked at as a rookie starting option this year, but went under the radar a little bit with his scoring, and isn't really talked about much. But Machito Owens, Mitch is Mitch, but they say it's Machito, isn't it? Mitch Owens. So you look at this, you look at the 3 round and go 70, 5 round 78. Like, it's not great. He's in 3% of teams. The thing is this guy's a 400k forward. He's up 159k, and the only reason his average is as low as it is because of the injury game, and also the game. Like, if we look at his scores, right, he's gone 76, 97, 76, 143, 84, 114, 91, 88, 53, 42, and a 116 last week. Now, the thing about Machito Owens is he does get a little bit of ruck time every now and then. They like to put him in the ruck when Marshall's resting, I guess. And if you take out this 42 was 35% game time. So if you extrapolate that out, that's what? Going to be probably 100 there as well. The Adelaide game, all of them scored really badly. They just got belted all around the park, so there wasn't really much you could do there. And if you look at it from there, like his floor is like 76. Like, every now and then a player chucks out a 53. Now and for an F6, this is not horrible. Like, as I said, a lot of people are going to be running that Ben Keys, Himmelberg, Fife, even some other forward choices as well. I mean, probably Darcy Cameron, who's probably got a little bit of a higher floor than Machito, but he has showed over the periods he can score well. And if we go to DFS and we type in, we go back to the SuperCoach scoring, what you see is they have an adjusted average feature. And what this does is it adjusts average games where a player has seen less than 50% time on ground to show the average without that. And if you look at Mitch Owens, his average actually goes up to 93.8, which puts him above Mason Wood and puts him at the Wilkie level. So a 93.8. And if you're getting a 93.8 out of your F6, you're probably pretty happy. Like, obviously we like the 100s to 105s, but I think that Mitch could potentially score even around that. And with that easy run coming up, he could easily see that score. So that's the last one, and the one that I thought probably offers the most value. Well, maybe not most value. I'd say Yo's probably the most value, but probably the biggest breakout on this list, I would say, and probably the one that if you're going to need a forward is to go for. I think I'd probably nearly go Owens over Fife if you were looking for like a real pod, because I think a lot of people are going to bring in Fife. He's already at 15% as of this week, and if he keeps scoring well, keep going up. And I think that Owens can fly under the radar. He's shown that throughout this year. You take out the games where he's got injured, even with the games he's got injured or against the Crows, he still averaged 90-ish, and that's all you need for your F6. So anyway, that is the video tonight. That is the Risk It pods. They're Risk It pods because we are risking them scoring well based off of, limited stats, injury proneness, or the fact that they're just pods in themselves. I mean, there are some ones that we didn't include. So Taron Thomas, obviously he's one. It'd just be interesting to see how he scores with the rest of the midfielders back. Keys is also here. Like, these are risky pods because they're not in many teams, but they do have the ability to score well. And looking at like Keys and Yo and Thomas, for example, they can all score very big. Well, we don't really know with Thomas, but he has been scoring well so far. But they obviously have either role issues or injury issues or just general never shown the history issues. And these could be make or break for your team. But if you are looking for something different, then these are just a few options, because a lot of people are looking for something different. And these may be just players you haven't thought about and hopefully maybe work well for you. So with that, that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like or even subscribe to the channel. It'd be very nice for you to do that. Obviously costs you nothing to do and is really helpful for us creators. So we'll see you in the next one. Hopefully all of you have a better buy than what I'm going to have, because yeah, I'm barely getting 18 on the field now with all these changes in the teams. But and also catch that video. It's also being posted at the same time, but was done before this. And we'll see you next week. Cheers.